I'm Jim Check, with me Ian Burns, managing editor. We're late today because we did that big interview with the guy that, a really good interview. You got to go watch it for sure. It was with Jonathan Kay. It went about an hour and a half. And he was very generous with his time. It was well worth it as well, though. But here's our regular news show. And we got lots to talk about, lots and lots and lots on the really big show. U.S. signs another trade deal, and it's not Canada. Inflation ticks higher. Can we get an answer on oil pipeline? Stellantis deal to be revealed. Housing minister changes tune, now says housing prices need to fall. Canada sent $109 million to China in aid. Finance minister to go after fraud. Trump destroying the White House. Property rights front and center in BC, and calls for Rustad's resignation increase. And Calgary gets a new mayor. All that and a lot more in a really big show. Lots of really big stuff going on for sure. But we're going to kick it off first with inflation. Canada's inflation rate higher than expected. According to StatsCan, prices increased by 2.4% in September compared with the same month last year. The annual rate is still 1.9. And then in BC, the September rate 1.9, slightly up from August, 1.8. And some of the highlights: food, this is the driver, food up 3.8%, shelter up 2.6%, health and personal care 2.6%, transportation 1.5%. There you go. And then the ones that fall, lo and behold, it's energy, right? And they said that taking that carbon tax wouldn't make any effect, but here it is. Actually, gas prices down negative 4.1%. We said that would happen. Crazy, hey? Crazy.
12.7% in August, and that is why one of the reasons why August had a better, or
negative
inflation was slower then.
Negative 12.7%. The carbon tax that never affected inflation all of a sudden has a massive effect. Imagine taking that out and see what it looks like, even right now, inflation. Energy is everything. We said that yesterday. That was our big thing yesterday. Energy is everything. We had that quote from Jensen Huang, who is that I think NVIDIA now has a greater market cap than Canada's GDP.
Yeah, has done for a while. It has been a few months now.
Imagine that. Jensen Huang, more powerful than the whole country of Canada, but he said, in no uncertain terms, energy is everything, and that it's the Trump's pro-energy policies that are driving innovation and leadership in the United States of America as far as AI goes. Anybody
I'm sure
listening?
He was absolutely, he must have been watering at the mouth when he heard Adrian Dix and David Eby yesterday say that they were going to ration energy for data centers and AI. Exactly what you need to do if you want to grow your economy.
I'm sure did they talk about wind at all? Because Jensen Huang would probably say, wind. Oh yeah, that's what Canada has, wind.
Yeah. Oh, that's the windy country, isn't it? Canada, yeah.
The big decision, though, coming October 29th now, Tiff Macklin will have a choice there to make. Everybody kind of had it said that it was kind of all but done. A cut, which I think they need to make a cut, but now these inflation numbers, yeah, we don't know.
But also it's at 2.5% now. That's pretty low.
It's in the target range.
In general,
it's in the target range, right? It's in the target.
I mean, sorry, I didn't mean inflation. I meant the interest rate, Bank of Canada's interest rate. It's kind of running out of space a little bit.
Well, the target's 2.
I mean, do we really want to go back to the old days where it was like 1% and lower?
Well, I can tell you the people that
quite stultifying.
The people that have the mortgage that's coming up for renewal, that's going to be 4 points higher than they had before, want it there.
Yeah. Well, and anybody with a large amount of debt, I guess. But the thing is, we experimented with that, didn't we? After the financial crash, countries all over the world experimented with it, and it led to an asset bubble, or many asset bubbles, and lots of other problems, productivity crises and whatnot. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, we are staring down another crisis, aren't we? Another economic crisis.
I think we have an economic winter coming. I mean, I'm still of the mind that they need to move the rate in they need to do it decisively and move it to 2%, do a half-point cut, and put some juice into the economy. They need to give it something, because right now it's on life support at best. And this is part of it too, is certainty. And this is a question and answer session in in Parliament there. And the question that needs to be answered, can we get a pipeline? And this is the Minister of Environment trying as hard as she can not to answer the question. It's just a simple question. Let's play the clip here. No volume. We're going to try that again, I take it. Let's see if we can get the volume to work.
So as I answered in the last one, we have a Build Canada Act that sets out a process and criteria for deciding.
Does that mean, I heard your answer from before, which was a non-answer. This is a very clear question. Are
I'm not seeing it now.
pipelines in the national interest of the country? It's a simple yes or no.
It's not a simple question that you're asking, because you're asking a question. I mean, my answer is quite simple as well. We have a Build Canada Act that sets out criteria.
Respectfully,
and
it's not an answer. So let's put this into context, Minister. The Keystone Pipeline, would you support it? Yes or no?
That's not a decision that I have before me. So what we've been talking about when we're talking about projects in national interest.
The decision could possibly come up very shortly. Would you support the Keystone XL pipeline? Yes or no?
I'm not going to answer a hypothetical. I will say that we have a process to decide which projects are in the national interest. That's what Canadians want from us.
So would pipelines fall under a project of national interest?
If there is a project that meets the 5 criteria, has Indigenous
would that include
consultation.
pipelines? I've not heard you say pipeline even once today.
What I'm saying is that there are many different kinds of projects that are being proposed as projects of national interest. It's really an exciting time, actually, for Canada to be able to envision what our future can look like.
And if one of those projects happened to be oil and gas pipelines, would that be something your government would support? Yes or no?
Again, it's a hypothetical until there's a fully designed project that's being put forward that has gone through Indigenous consultation.
So, given that, your track record said otherwise, because when the Northern Gateway Pipeline was before your cabinet table, your government's cabinet table, it had overwhelming support from Indigenous communities, and yet your government and at the cabinet table decided to cancel that project. So it's a little hard for us to believe that your government now has a change of heart that wants to somehow build projects that would be to the benefit of Canada, when your government has also turned away our allies when they came here for our energy. So once again, would your government be in support of an oil and gas pipeline if it's in the national interest and before you today?
And what I'm saying is I can't provide you with an evaluation of a hypothetical. What
That's
I can
good
tell
enough.
you.
I mean, I don't think I would do well in those kind of committee hearings. I'm just like, hypothetically answer me then. Just give me a hypothetical answer to a hypothetical question. It's ludicrous. It's a question that Jean Chrétien said, we will build oil pipelines. Where are they? Why can't
there was a fist involved?
Yeah, why can't they answer that question? Just say yes or no. I mean, the Keystone XL one is super simple. You don't need BC's permission. Right there, just yes or no. Yes or no. I mean, Mark Carney answered, should he arrest Benjamin Netanyahu? He said yes.
And is there a climate crisis? Was the follow-up question. Yes, right away. No need for nuance there. No need for context.
This should frustrate. She said one piece of misinformation there. She said Canadians want us not to have an oil pipeline, basically. No. The majority of Canadians want an oil pipeline. Polls show that. Jean Chrétien wants an oil pipeline. You don't want an oil pipeline. Just answer the question. Just tell Canadians the answer. And again, deal after deal, the Americans make a deal, and here's our friends, the Aussies, inking a deal at the White House. Where's our deal? Let's play this clip.
And Australians love America, and I think Americans kind of like Australia too.
Sure, we do.
And as we go forward, I think that today will be seen as a really significant day in our relationship. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much, Anthony. It's an honor to sign this, and we'll do it now. And then we'll take some questions. Some good ones, I think.
Well, that's good enough. We won't go through the whole thing there. I'll kind of summarize it for you. So, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese there signs the deal with Trump on none other than rare earth minerals, something we have a lot of. Signs an $8.5 billion deal with Trump. Gets a 10% flat tariff on everything, which they both seem to think is great. And gets a nuclear submarine that they're going to build for Aussies. Canada is shopping around to buy some diesel subs still. You can't even make this
And
stuff
that's
up.
a natural. That's called AUKUS, isn't it? It's got the Britain is in that as well. Australia, UK, US. You would expect Canada would sneak in there. You could call it caucus then, but alas, no. And it is particularly awkward that we're in the market for subs. And just also, if you just look at a map, if you look at a map based on the Pacific, centered in the Pacific, you can see how natural it is for those countries to work together. Not so much Britain, but whatever. But Australia, Canada, and the US, it's a bit of a shame, isn't it? But we were saying yesterday, weren't we, about this rare earth thing? The Americans must want Canada to do this kind of thing as well, because obviously it's a lot safer, it's a lot more secure and reliable for the Americans if they can get it from the same landmass rather than having to transport it over the Pacific Ocean.
If you don't, I've never watched a Trump press conference, which he does a ton of them. This one you have to watch for a couple of reasons. One is he just brought up a mirror from the archives there, a 400-year-old mirror, and a camera bumped into it. And it's like he was in his own house. He's like, hey, watch that. The guy bumped the mirror, and then he says something that my dad used to say, oi, 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 right? And the other awkward moment was when an Australian reporter got to ask a question, because Trump will take people from the back row too. He asked the question, he says, like, why did it take so long to get this deal done? He should have been asking that for Canada. Why did it take so long to get this deal done? Was it some of the things that the ambassador said about you? Do you think that hasn't helped? And Trump said, ambassador said some bad stuff about me. He asked the prime minister there, and he's like, he's just kind of, I don't know. He said, this guy, he said, don't tell me what it is. And then Trump says, the guy doesn't work for you anymore, does he? And he's like, he points to the guy across the table, that guy. So Trump says, you said some bad things about me? And the guy's like, and then he says, I don't like you. I'm never going to like you. And then after, the ambassador apologized to Trump.
And that ambassador is Kevin Rudd, who is the former prime minister of Canada, of Australia.
Well, our friends, the Aussies, did us on canola. So China cut our canola because they tariffed our canola. And Australia said, we'll sell you canola. And now rare earths. Australia put up its hand and said, we can do that. And then also, if anybody should have a nuclear sub, it should be Canada. But again, is it an ideological choice that we're still buying diesel subs that, I don't know.
I guess the idea is Australia, again, look, if you look at a map, it's way over there, quite a long way from the United States. It's in its own neighborhood. Whereas Canada, I get the feeling that the Americans look at Canada and just say, oh, we'll just do it. Like, we'll just send the subs up there. And it's kind of, Canada gets to live in this kind of fairyland where the Americans take care of military matters.
Well, maybe they only trust us with a nuclear sub, just like you guys are having a tough time with those diesel subs. You bought a couple used ones in a garage sale from the UK a number of years ago, and you lit them on fire on the way home. What do you think that's going to happen with a nuclear sub? And,
well, I mean, Canada's having trouble with every single area of its military, so maybe the Americans are just thinking, yeah, not worth it, not bothered. We'll just do it.
The other thing that was tough to take in this press conference was, like Australia, I think Albanese and Trump both said it. Australia and Americans have stood shoulder to shoulder in world wars, and they've been best buds and everything. I'm just thinking, and Canada, weren't we there? I'm sure we were there.
It's
I'm sure we were there.
Very sad, isn't it?
And up next is the diva of drama. Here she goes, Melanie Jolie, just on fire as usual, being none other than Melanie Jolie.
Mr. Speaker, when this government negotiate contracts that are good ones. And so my colleague will have the chance to see these contracts. That being said, we will make sure to put full pressure on the company. These jobs need to stay in Brampton. These jobs need to stay in Canada. And ultimately, the future of the auto sector is bright, and we'll continue to fight for it.
Bravo. Turns out they're going to turn over those documents, not because the Liberals wanted to, they tried to block it. Turns out that all the other parties said, we'll see the documents, please. And so the Commons Government Operations Committee yesterday voted to compel disclosure of the cabinet's subsidy agreements with Stellantis. The MPs sought confidential terms since 2022. The Liberals weren't going to cough it up unless somebody forced them to, with the subsidies totaling $15 billion. She said they write good contracts. I would probably say, ArriveCan? Is that one of those contracts?
Well, I mean, how many more? And lots of them related to cars. But like, I find it so funny that she said the future of automaking in Canada is bright. Today, what's the news?
Yeah.
Bright drop. GM said they're not going to build
it's
it
our
in
next
Canada.
story, actually. Yeah, it's our next story. They're going to reveal the documents. We'd like to see how many redactions are in this document, right? And why wouldn't they share this? This is, again, why is this considered national security stuff? Why wouldn't, this is the part that just blows me away all the time. These should be a matter of public record. These shouldn't be hidden from the public. It's taxpayer dollars. Why are we we're smart enough to give the money, like to give them the $15 billion. It's not the Liberals' money, but we're too stupid to read the document. Is that it? We're good enough to give up the money that comes off your check every week, but we're too stupid to realize where it's going. Is that the thing? Is that it, Melanie? Explain that to us.
I think so. Yeah.
Because
something to do
apparently,
with confidentiality.
According to her, she should be very proud of the document because she only signs good contracts. Isn't that what she said?
Just 100% record. She's very humble.
And there you go. Here's General Motors says it's ending production of the Bright Drop electric delivery van. How many taxpayer dollars went into that one, Melanie? Can we see those contracts, please? Please and thank you. Stellantis, done. Bright Drop, done. Northvolt, done. Lionor, done. Contracts, please. Another one from Holly Owens. Gregor Robertson, remember when he was first asked, he got posted as the housing minister. He got that job, and he said that housing prices can't come down, that they need to stay where they are. And a lot of people accused him of, because he's got a few $1 million worth of properties, saying that he was just looking after himself. But now all of a sudden, he says cabinet does not expect to meet its housing targets until, imagine that, until 2035 at the earliest. And that's what the housing minister said yesterday in the Commons Finance Committee. He said, we can only work with the facts in front of us. Cabinet's target to raise housing starts to a record 500,000 annually will take many years to achieve. Not according to the Liberals when they were running.
It was a done deal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And also, he says 2035, but that is, if you include this parliament, that's 3 parliaments that need to occur. So really, we'll sort it out in 2035 if you elect your local Liberal MP.
Yeah, so housing starts are actually off, right? So last year they only totaled 245,000, and the last time we had a high was 273,000 in 1976. So I mean, again, here's the Liberals' vast, big promises that they stood at the podium time and time after again and says, we will build 500,000. We knew it was a joke. We kept saying it. And it says, when is the first year that you're going to build 500,000 homes in Canada? And the language used over the next decade. Yeah. But now he's saying that prices need to come down as well.
Well, that's remarkable, isn't it? Because when he gave that answer from the gut, when he was just being sworn in May, he was asked the same question and he said no. And he kind of fumbled it. Not particularly articulate gentleman, I don't think, or at least he wasn't in that moment of his life. I think what he was trying to say was, rather than bring house prices down, we want to bring wages up so much and so fast that the current price looks affordable. That's what we want to do. We want to make you all rich, Canadians. But he kind of stumbled around and dug his own grave a little bit, didn't he? And then that just kind of stunk up the Liberal caucus and the Liberal Party's reputation on housing for these 5 months. And now he said, "Oh no, by the way, actually, yeah, I do want house prices to come down." I mean,
I think he,
it's just a bit of a mess, isn't it? And it's kind of that same day. Do you remember that day? That was when they all got sworn in, and they all just piped up about random things. They were so like undisciplined, and they were all over the place. And I think Mark Carney must have just like got the reports back, telling him like his little fellows will have come up to him and given him the pieces of paper. And he's just like, oh God, like
So-
what is going on here?
The other thing they could do is being front running the obvious news is the housing prices are coming down as mortgage defaults go higher. So now they could be front running to say, oh no, that's what they wanted. This is happening, whether they want them to come down or not, because this is just.
Well, it's like to the Chinese. I mean, some might say it's harsh to compare the Liberal Party to the Communist Party of China, but the Chinese recently came out and said, "Oh, we're actually going to hit emissions targets like way earlier than we ever promised because we're so cool and we're so nice, we're so great." In reality, it's because the Chinese population is shrinking and they don't have the growth that they used to have. Their economy is somewhat dysfunctional, so they're getting ahead of it. And yeah, it's funny you should say that because that probably is it, isn't it? The Liberals they've noticed that.
Yeah.
And they
They're
thought,
just front
all right,
running the
let's lean
news
into
and then
this.
trying to get in front of it and then say, oh yeah, that's what we wanted. And here's a good one. Blow you away. $109 million in aid went to China. Don't they have the second biggest economy in the world? Why are we sending them money? And how do we apply?
Also, we're told, even the Prime Minister said it's like the number one threat that we face.
Are we putting up that slide there? I don't know. Canada, since 2015, has awarded more than $100 million in foreign aid to China. The Department of Foreign Affairs said the funding promoted sustainable development. Canada's bilateral
and
funding
gender
promotes
equality.
Key foreign policy priorities in China, including human rights. Yeah, that probably really changed human rights in China. Gender equality, sustainable development, climate change. All things that China has on the top of their priority list, I'm sure.
And then Canada has not provided direct bilateral assistance to Chinese state authorities since 2013. Where do you think the money goes in China? Do you think that there's there's a huge private sector in China that is completely independent of the Communist Party?
Do we not have the slides right now, or the $109 million in aid went to China? Foreign aid to all countries abroad cost taxpayers $12.3 billion last year, according to Stat report on international assistance. Can you believe that? The largest recipient last year was Ukraine at $2.1 billion, Ethiopia $195 million, Haiti at $172 million, South Africa $165 million, Bangladesh at $154 million, West Bank and Gaza $151 million. That doesn't account for all of it.
Sure.
Where did the rest of it go?
I'm sure Mahmoud Abbas got a very nice yacht for that $151 million there. Good for him.
Where
if
does
he can get it.
Where does Canada have $12.3 billion be doling out $109 million of that to China? China, the second largest economy in the world. I mean, they must be just laughing, especially on the priorities. These priorities, and when they said to President Xi, so we're going to give you $109 million. We want you to focus that on gender equality, human rights, sustainable development, and climate change.
And then he takes that money and puts it into the military, probably, and just says, go and buy a few rocket launchers or something, lads. Go and treat yourselves.
And then he also just got just out of the Canada Infrastructure Bank, $1 billion to build some ferries. That's not the full price of the project. That's just what the Canadian Infrastructure Bank kicked in for it. It's like literal comedy. Like, I mean, who's running this place?
It's really
Absolute
worth highlighting
comedy.
though, as well, that point you made, and that is at the bottom of this story. Foreign aid to all countries last year cost taxpayers $12.3 billion. So that's just 1 year.
And somebody just commented.
Just think about that. Think about, just for a second, TMX. Think about all that drama about TMX because the federal government had to buy it and had to spend money on it. Think of like John Hogan, David Eby. David Eby, last few weeks, banging the dates. I'm furious about this. Stop giving money. It's kind of, why aren't you furious about this then? The TMX is making us money now. It's a vital piece of infrastructure in this country. It's it's of enormous importance, and it's going to pay for itself. But because that happened here, because that was kind of aid to ourselves, it's controversial. But this just, I mean, who even knows that? What kind of person and what kind of citizen in this country even knows that more than $12 billion was spent on foreign aid
How do we get an
last year?
auditor? How do we get an auditor at the other end and see who's cashing this check? Because I'm not even sure if this check goes to where they say it's going. Because I can't see China saying, yeah, we need some money for climate change and human rights violations, when we know exact $12.3 billion. And somebody in the comments here says, I don't know how you guys can comment daily about these atrocious decisions, corruption, and decay without going crazy. It's mind-blowing. Here's what's even more mind-blowing. CBC covering this story? CTV covering these stories? No. This is Holly Dones out of Blacklock. She goes and gets FOIs. And some of the liberals will tell you that these aren't true. They're absolutely true. But is mainstream media covering them? Why would they?
Maybe they're trying to preserve their mental health, so they can't handle it.
Maybe that's what it is. That's
CBC.
right. Maybe. You and I seem to be getting more ranty as it goes.
We're already crazy. We're crazy long ago. That's why we can do this. But I would just point out, sorry, I just want to look at those countries. Ukraine, okay? We all know about Ukraine. I think probably most Canadians feel a lot of sympathy for the Ukrainians. Doesn't change the fact that Ukraine, for the last 20 years, or really since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Ukraine has been considered one of the most corrupt countries on earth. Like really astonishing levels of corruption. That's where most of the money went. Ethiopia, it's quite an impressive country, Ethiopia, in many ways, and looks like it's got a bright future, but it has serious problems with corruption. Haiti isn't even a country. We asked the question, is Canada a country? We can answer it with Haiti. That is not a country. It's even the Liberal government is saying that recently. It's kind of degenerated into warlords, and there's no country there. There's no
so
state.
Who got the money? Yeah, where'd the money go?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You're talking about an audit. Then South Africa, just extravagantly corrupt country, marvelously corrupt. Bangladesh, obviously. West Bank, and then Gaza. I mean, come on. The West Bank. So Yasser Arafat, who was in charge, you may remember, of based in the West Bank, in charge of the Palestinian Authority, Fatah, he's supposed to have died a billionaire. He had no real business. He had no business empire or anything like that. He just grafted off the aid. I mean, it's notorious.
Grifted.
The Palestinian
they
territories
are grifters.
Absolutely notorious for corruption. And that's it. We chucked 150 million at them. I mean, realistically, you have to think only a fraction of that would have gone to what it was meant to. And that probably would be considered a success.
In a past life as a CPA, I've done audits. And I think the first question I would ask if I got to go there and do any type of audit like that is like, so what's the normal grift here? Like, how much do you take off the top? Like, when you're sending this money over there, what's the skim? Like, is it 90%? Like, how much actually ends up in the hands of whoever you're saying you're giving it to? And talking about grifters, here's Canada's biggest grifter right here. And this is Marie-Philippe Bouchard. She only makes $562,000. Can we put her picture up? $562,000 a year as the CEO of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, plus, all the travel and all that other stuff. And yesterday acknowledged the network claimed that millions subscribed to CBC's GEM video streaming service include many who signed up for free. One-time accounts. The CBC and federal court trying to block the disclosure of the number who paid the $72 a year. Again, public broadcaster, our money, but they don't want to reveal to us, the people that pay them, where the money is and how they're making money. So, and it's just, it's absolutely. And then she said, and they asked, are you embarrassed about the numbers of CBC GEM? And she said, no, of course not. Then why won't you just tell us what the numbers are? And then she said, well, I can give you a number. I can give you a number that there's 5.3 million accounts that have been created. That's like Twitter when it was selling, when they said they had 200 million accounts and I think 80% of them were bots, right? Like they weren't paid accounts.
Yeah.
How many? And then they pressed, how many are paying? Well, I don't know. I don't have that number. Wouldn't you think if you went into this committee hearing, that'd be the number you would have? That if you
Not
had...
unless you didn't want to give it.
Exactly, right?
I'm still kind of dazzled. I'm almost like punch drunk from what you said earlier, what the Blacklock said here, that she earns $562,000 a year.
But that's plus,
Just
plus, plus,
dwell
though.
on that. Just marinate.
Plus.
Just rub that in. 562 G's a year to run a complete
To refuse.
joke of a media outlet.
And part of her job is to go to these committee hearings and to refuse to answer questions to the Canadian taxpayer, which she takes money from. They literally think that the money comes from the Liberals, and the Liberals literally think it's their money, and they don't have to answer to the public.
It certainly gives that impression, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, this is appalling. Talk about corruption. Obviously, Canada has a very different kind of corruption, but this could fall into that category, I would say. Of
This is an elitist.
this does not relate in any way to what the Canadian people want, really, does it? Nobody. I mean, just look at the numbers that we do have access to. Just look at how many people actually watch CBC content. Barely anyone, really.
Is anybody that's watching us watch CBC? Like, is
entity.
anybody? Do you think she's worth 500? This is the base. This is her base. That she's worth $562,000 a year. Like with what we're getting out of the CBC.
Just bear in mind as well, you could basically run a decent newsroom off that sort of money. So
The
they
whole
could
newsroom,
they
yeah.
could plant a newsroom somewhere like Kelowna where they don't have any reporters. They have that radio guy, don't they? They don't have anybody doing actual news.
Yeah.
In exchange for her, this glorious administrator, they could have a newsroom in somewhere like Kelowna. You know, it's like you do have to ask these questions, especially at a time when we're being told that there's not much money to go around anymore.
And this is another one from Holiday on the Black Logs. Canada has normalized anti-Semitism and made public spaces unsafe for Jews, including children. The Senate Human Rights Committee was told yesterday. Witnesses testifying at the start of hearings on anti-Semitism says public expression of hatred was so commonplace it became pervasive and casual and even fashionable. And we've seen that in the protests and all that stuff. And yeah.
Beyond that, you know, stabbings. There was a woman stabbed in Ottawa in a grocery store.
I remember that.
Well-known woman in the Jewish community. Yeah. In Quebec and Toronto, you've had people firing bullets at synagogues. It's just become, it's just everywhere, isn't it? It's become totally, as they say, it has become normalized. I agree with that.
There is some good news on the horizon. Look at this, Francois Philippe Champagne announcing something. Let's listen to what he announces, then we'll talk about it. Let's listen in on the greater fool theory here.
Budget 2025 will introduce Canada's first ever national anti-fraud strategy. This is a big, bold step that we're taking this morning. As fraud becomes more sophisticated, more Canadians are being impacted. Fraud is an issue across sectors, as fraudsters increasingly use text messages, emails, and social media to target victims. This means firms across the technology, telecommunication, and financial sectors must step up. This strategy will explore new policies and action that require these sectors to work more closely together to protect Canadians. Just to give you a sense of perspective, financial scams costed Canadians $643 million in 2024.
That's good.
And we have seen a large.
I think Francois Philippe Champagne, let's just go back a couple stories there. $12.3 billion of aid going to countries. The ArriveCan scam was at $643 million. Can we go on the green scheme documents? You still haven't revealed. I think that was like $250 million. So is this an internal audit division that you're starting? Or is this another new agency that is going to have one of Mark Carney's friends from the past take over and earn over $500,000 running this new agency? Again, distracting Canadians from the real problems of fraud, waste, and abuse, which are right there in the Liberal government. Like, we can go on and on. $109 million. You talked about one scam there. You're saying, like, you know, like how many millions? Like $109 million to China. Like, for what? For what?
And that's because they talk about it in that article, don't they? They try and justify it by saying on a GDP per capita level, China's still within the sort of brackets where it's entitled to Canadian aid. It's like, can you imagine looking at China on a per capita basis for anything? That's not how China operates. That's not how China works. It's such an absurd thing to do.
And here's where Francois Philippe yesterday announced that it was the 2021 proposal to create the Canadian Financial Crimes Agency. But, you know, it's 2021, but they've been consulting since then. How much do you think McKinsey and Co. made off of this consulting gig? Why don't we start there and to get rid of, cut that?
I mean, I would just love to know, like, what have you been told that you didn't already know? I mean, and what, and if you were completely blind, why didn't you know this? And also, you have tens of that, like hundreds of thousands of employees who surely, like, one of them or some of them could tell you, could give you this information. Why do you have to consult ad nauseum?
I think they should hire you and I, and they can just run the policies by, and we say, is this an internal fraud audit, internal audit? Can we start there? Billions and billions of dollars. Can we start there? And here's another one. Here's another one. There's Melanie Joly on the Financial Post. Canada urges pension funds to invest at home in age of economic nationalism. What question comes to my mind right away is, the Prime Minister moved Brookfield south and took most of his assets are south. Why doesn't he demonstrate leadership, bring Brookfield back, and bring his investments back to Canada?
But he was also, when he was talking about this $1 trillion of investment in the United States or whatever, he was talking about the likes of pension funds when he, you know, that was the context there. So is he gonna sort of walk that back and say, oh no, please, pension funds, don't bother investing in Amazon and Tesla and things like that. Come and invest in. Sorry,
and then,
no company comes to mind, but come and invest here.
And then they talk about fraud, though, too. It wasn't one of our big banks, TD, that just got busted for money laundering, paid billions of dollars in fines?
Loads of them have been done for that, haven't they, over the years? Yeah. Cheeky.
Canadian public opinion about immigration. The most notable change of the past year is how immigration continues to grow as the polarized issue divides Canadian across political party lines. And obviously, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives a lot more vocal on it. Even Justin Trudeau was vocal on it. But it looks like it's becoming more palatable for the Liberals and the NDP to continue with their path, their policies that benefit the few at the expense of the many.
It's remarkable, isn't it, that chart? If you look back at 2001, parties, I mean, the main two parties, Liberal and Conservative, they're almost the same.
Yeah.
And they track quite similar, like closely for quite a while. And then you can see the reaction if you look at 2022. That is a direct reaction to the post-COVID Trudeau population surge, immigration surge. Right away, the people they've literally seen it with their own eyes. They've looked at the numbers and they've said, no, thank you. At least in the Conservative Party. The interesting thing is, I mean, the NDP and Liberals, you can see, they also saw it. But they didn't really take it very far, did they? It's fascinating to
this next
observe.
chart.
But I mean, the headline here is 56% of all Canadians. You can split it into political stripes if you want, but 56% of all Canadians. That's a decent enough majority, isn't it?
This next chart tells you everything you need to know about waste, fraud, corruption, abuse, too much middle management. Here it is, Canada, like number 3 in spending in healthcare, but on delivery, sucks. That's a nice way to say it. Knows how to spend money, but so where's the money being spent is the question. Where is the money being spent? That's the question Canadians need to ask. And this is the thing with the Liberals. They don't release documents. This is what accountability, Trudeau ran on, accountability and transparency, and yet they will never be held accountable and transparent. Like, again, they didn't release those Stellantis documents because they felt out of the goodness of heart that Canadians deserve to know what all those billions in subsidies went. They did it because they were forced to do it. They need to be forced to reveal everything. It's public taxpayer dollars. Show us where the money is being spent.
Something that you'd think that they'd be very sensitive about, you know, and that they would have that, you'd think they would have that, like, written on the wall. Remember, this is not your money.
Yeah.
Like, be very respectful.
But CBC, like that lady at the CBC, refusing to answer a basic question on how many people are actually paying for GEM. Why should Canadians continue to pay for GEM, because we're paying and funding it, if nobody actually wants it? Like, if Canadians don't want it, they don't want to pay for it, why are we funding it? That's what they're protecting. They're protecting the cash cow.
Yeah, the budget allotment, yeah. And also it's what you mentioned elitism earlier. It is kind of a bit of that, isn't it? It's like we know better and we don't have to give these numbers to other people because then they'll misunderstand it.
Well,
They
you're too
can't
stupid
understand.
to
But
understand.
we understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
You don't
we have
understand
to
the
have this
importance. Yeah.
information.
You don't understand the importance, like us, well-educated and well greased in cash. $562,000, just her base salary, and then she refused to answer the taxpayer
in exchange for repeated failure for
and
the organization. CBC has consistently failed to appeal to the large majority of Canadians. Consistently failed to do that.
I don't think they'd like me in Parliament because if I had the power, I would just say to her if she refused to answer the question, you have 10 minutes to bring back the information. You can go talk to whoever you need to talk to because we know you have the information. Go get it, or you're fired. You're literally fired. Like, if you can't provide that information in 10 minutes, get out. Justin Trudeau, turns out that his post yesterday didn't go over that well. I guess he was trying to impress his girlfriend there, Katy Perry, and Canadians weren't buying in. But let's play a little clip.
He impressed us with his hair, didn't he? But not so much his
let's play let's just go down memory lane, and maybe Canadians are remembering this too much as opposed to what he sees, what he remembers. This is more what most Canadians remember.
Trying to bring people together is not always compatible with science, with respect for human rights, with the best way to move things forward. I mean, when Aaron O'Toole talks about, oh yes, we need to unite people, we need to bring people together, he's talking about defending the rights of people who are anti-vax. Yes, there is a small fringe element in this country that is angry, that doesn't believe in science, that is lashing out with racist, misogynistic attacks. But Canadians, the vast majority of Canadians, are not represented by them. And I know will not allow those voices, those special interest groups, those protesters who can, I don't even want to call them protesters, those...
You don't want to get vaccinated, that's your choice. But don't think you can get on a plane or a train besides vaccinated people and put them at risk.
That's good enough. Yeah, that's good enough.
Some greatest hits there. Blimey, I'd almost forgotten the lecturing, hectoring tone of that man.
The virtue signaling was like, that's what most Canadians remember, Justin. So, thank you.
Well, I mean, and also the lack of self-awareness there is saying the vast majority of Canadians, aren't represented by them. The vast majority of Canadians were never represented by him either. But for some reason that didn't enter his head before he said that. It's like, oh, hold on. I'm quite vulnerable on this point. Maybe I shouldn't mention majorities and representation since, he didn't even win the popular vote in his last two successful elections where he won minorities.
And then we got to listen to this. Like, CPAC seems to give her a lot of airtime, but let's listen in to Elizabeth May defending Justin Trudeau.
Canada. I don't know about the rest of you, but I felt compelled to speak out at Pierre Poilievre's latest, outburst that seems to have come from the pages of Project 2025. It certainly didn't come from the criminal code, with the notion that former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau should be in jail if not for the quote-unquote despicable leadership of the RCMP. First of all, I did go to law school. Pierre Poilievre didn't. People think there are too many lawyers in politics.
That's good.
This episode.
I can't listen to her.
Just obsessed with America. I mean, what's she talking about? Something is obscure from a Canadian perspective, even from an American perspective, but especially from a Canadian perspective. Something as obscure as Project 2025. Why is she just dropping that? No context. She's just dropping that. It's always about America with these people, isn't it? It's kind
Well,
of
it's hate. It's how you
they
can
are
put
so
slurs,
obsessed with
hate, and
America.
all that
They're
stuff.
just
Yeah.
inside of the American universe, and they're so deep inside of it that they don't even realize.
And look how the machine goes to the defense of Trudeau here, and this is CTV News. Liberals, Greens, NDP call on Poilievre to apologize. Nobody wants to look into the story. It's weird, no? Don't you find it weird? And you know, like
It is very, very weird, and that is well worth highlighting that the media has chosen
not
to
even to
attack
look.
somebody
Hey.
that fundamentally doesn't have any power. He doesn't have any real power.
Yeah.
They've chosen to attack the critic, the shadow minister, so to speak.
And then,
the
you know, like
guy that's
it's
trying
like,
to hold power to account. That's who they're attacking,
and it's
rather
like
than power itself.
And it's like they're saying, we never go after prime ministers. How dare we? I would like to say, Prime Minister Brian Mulroney.
Well, even like some of the things that were said about Stephen Harper, I mean, quite extraordinary language used by Justin Trudeau himself, you know.
And then here's today, breaking, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy walking to prison. He gets 5 years for what he did there. But according to Elizabeth May and the CTV here, and the rest of the people protecting Justin Trudeau, that how dare we even bring it up? Nobody wants to even look under the hood. Why?
Well, Sarkozy is considered to be on the right of French politics, so I'm sure Elizabeth May and the rest will be quite gratified to see this news. If, on the other hand, it was Francois Hollande or Macron or somebody like that,
they'd
be very,
their
very distressed. They'd be like, "This is just France is becoming a fascist dictatorship."
And cue the climate change stories are coming up now because they're going to start pushing this carbon capture thing. So here we go. CTV, how common is severe climate change anxiety in Canada? And this study offers a glimpse, right? There's a 2.3% of people experience are considered clinically relevant, causing meaningful distress and disruption in their lives. Well, the cure for you is stop watching CBC and CTV.
Can you imagine that? That 2.3% of Canada's population. I mean, what is that? That's
and then
a few
here's a
hundred
worse
thousand
one, though.
people, isn't it? It's not an insignificant number of people. That.
And then another study says 37% of Canadian teenagers have been affected by climate change. You know, it's the youth for sure. It's in the schools, right? Like it's in the schools that, you know, like they've convinced some young people not even to have children.
Absolutely, but the clinically relevant thing means that it causes meaningful distress and destruction in their lives. So these people are walking around. I mean, I guess every time they see a gas car or something like that, do they just feel like a wince of pain? And these are people who, the likes of Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau and others, they should really think before they speak, because there are obviously people out there who are dangerously misinformed about climate change and the nature of climate change, to the extent that their lives are miserable and they're in a state of anxiety and depression because they think that driving a car in Canada causes wildfires and floods and things like that. They actually think that there's a direct link of causation there between those two things. They need to be told that that's nonsense. And I mean, obviously somebody like Stephen Guilbeault isn't going to do it, but is there a possibility Mark Carney would do it? I don't know. If he's the pragmatist and the reasonable chap that some people say he is, you'd think he would say, like, look, like, friends, Canadians, we're a tiny, tiny dot on this planet when it comes to emissions. There's nothing we can do. If you buy a plastic bag or something like that, or you drive your car and it's a gas car, it's not going to cause wildfires in Canada. There's no link. Please calm down. Stop being so anxious.
Here's the real puzzler, because Justin Trudeau said, don't worry about paying your rent and buying food and all that, because climate change is existential, and that's got to be priority number one. And why were we sending $109 million to China, who didn't give a hoot about climate change? You could have given that to Canadians so they could buy some bread.
On the planet.
Anyway, we're gonna move past that next story. It was on CRA, but we're gonna go to BC News because we got Renee Merrifield at Beyond the Ballot at noon here, so we got to kind of like slog through the rest of this, and we're running late today. Here's Keith Wilson, 95, and I did that interview with Jeff Moyse 31 years as Aboriginal a lawyer for the various governments of BC. 95% of this is what he's saying. 90% of BC's land base is subject to unresolved claims of Aboriginal title, and it has been said that BC and we just had a guest on, BC and Nova Scotia are the ones that really are facing most of these issues here. And the question was posed to David Eby yesterday, and I asked Finance Minister Brenda Bailey the same question. But let's listen to what David Eby has to say.
Blue Jays fan also. Premier David Eby, for you, Malcolm Brody, the mayor of Richmond, sent a letter to residents on the weekend about a town hall that they are having. He's also said around the Cowichan Lands decision, he said that he wants certainty for both the province and the federal government around arguing in appeal that private ownership should be protected from any decision. Is that the argument that you plan to make on appeal? And John Rustad has also raised concerns saying that you're not moving fast enough here to provide certainty, and that he believes that you should not be negotiating with First Nations while this appeal is underway. What do you say to both those ideas?
Thanks. I share the concern of Mayor Brody about the implications of this decision. It's a big deal. And it's crucial for our economy, for just the basic economics of a family, that people understand their private property rights. That's the basis of how things work in the province. So clarity and resolution is urgently needed. And yes, in the appeal, of course, we are arguing to defend those private property rights of those homeowners and for certainty to ensure that businesses can make the decisions to invest that they need to make.
Well, again, if you go watch that interview I did with Jeff Moyes, he said the BC government told them explicitly not to argue extinguishment on private lands. And so he said that was one of the best defenses, and they didn't argue it. So they made that choice, and now here we are. And, you know, this thing could take 5 to 7 years to go through the court system. The Supreme Court of Canada won't hear it until it is exhausted in the BC Supreme Court. So
he said that David Eby in that press conference said that the reason they didn't argue for extinguishment is because it was attempted before and it failed, and he said therefore it was a waste of time to argue for extinguishment. Obviously, the chap that you interviewed disagrees with that very strongly, but that's Eby's opinion.
Here's I interviewed yesterday. I interviewed Amelia Boltby. Yesterday, she jumped ship from Rustad's Conservative Party of BC, and she shared some very. She was quite open yesterday. I think it's well worth your time to go watch that interview. And more people calling for the resignation of John Rustad. And again, as you know, like people can complain about the NDP, but David Eby is right now in the driver's seat. You can say, look over there. And I actually asked that of Amelia, do you think David Eby is right now has the opportunity to call an election and win a majority? And she said, if I was him, I would. So it's a good interview to watch.
It's got to be a massive temptation, hasn't it, for the NDP looking at this?
I mean, it's expensive, but it is probably the most. There is, I would say, right now. I'm not sure how long John Rustad lasts, if he can fight this one off, because there's been a few chinks in the armor recently with Eleanor Sturco, and then the other three, and then a couple other things. But there's there's obviously there's a lot of chinks in the armor right now. A lot of calls for his resignation. This one didn't go well because he said some things that just did not land well, right? He attacked her for her mental health and all kinds of things. Doesn't look good. And, I'm not sure if he lasts. It's no different than Kevin Falcon. It's not what John Rustad thinks. It's the funding, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the people backing John Rustad. Will they continue to back somebody that seems to be attacking women? Because Eleanor Sturco, super strong voice, and she could challenge for the leadership of that party. And that would be trouble for David Eby. I would say that would be trouble for David Eby.
But then her, or whoever it is, that sort of wins this battle and leads the new right, if that's going to happen, their challenge then would be, okay, how do we compromise in some way with the BC Conservative sort of
How do you bring
diehards.
it back together? Yeah, how do you
because that's what failed last time.
Humpty Dumpty
You
fell
mentioned
off
that
a
a
wall,
lot.
right? Yeah.
You mentioned that a lot, and I think it's accurate that Falcon just walked away,
Yeah.
left BC United, and then Rustad had that marvelous opportunity to kind of make two parties into one. But instead, he took a few, but he really kept it as that one party. And I think in retrospect, we have to look at that as a mistake.
It was a big
Yeah. So
missed
the
opportunity.
next time, if it's somebody from the BC Liberal sort of side of the right, if they're going to lead the right next time, they've obviously got to do it right this time, and somehow come to an arrangement with the BC Conservative diehards.
Well, lo and behold, the winds of change are blowing in Alberta. Look at this. Mayor Gutnick, or whatever her name is, she lost her job. What's her last name? What's that?
Gondek.
She's Gotnick. She's Gonnick. There she's going. She lost. And yeah, so there you go. Jeff, we got the vote here. The winner, Jeremy Farkas. And Godnick is out. And
serious names in Calgary politics.
It looks like almost a movie from Shrek or something, right? Farkas.
Lord Farkas, what are you doing here?
And Edmonton, did they decide yet? Because it wasn't decided this morning, but Edmonton, they were still counting for some reason. But Calgary seemed to count better. Calgarians, there they go, winning the Battle of Alberta. But yeah, big deal, because this mayor here, this one that lost her job there, remember she didn't even want to do Canada Day. Like she was called on the carpet.
Controversial, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was very left-leaning, and like in Alberta country, especially Calgary, tough town to be. Nishi ran that he had that post for a while too in Calgary, but now he's like the NDP leader.
The outgoing mayor, I believe it was, on the radio on CBC, obviously this morning, and she blamed.
Imagine that.
She blamed the teachers' strike. She said, "I think people are just sick in general of life in Alberta, and they're sick of the teachers' strike, so they voted me out." And
here's like the somebody put a cartoon together there. She's now alone on Woke Island, and we talked about it with Jonathan Kay that. And you and I have said it many times, and you've said it a lot actually, is that the politics of yesterday are dying. Like these are the people of yesterday. This is dying. The American election changed everything, absolutely everything. And so all this kind of this cabal, the WEF and all that stuff, it's losing its foothold. Canada seems to be one of the last bastions for it, but you're seeing like even Calgary wake up and leave Woke Island.
But there's been a price, hasn't there? You said Canada's the last bastion, but there's been a price the Liberal Party has had to pay, and the price has been to drop a lot of that stuff, and to stop acting like yesterday's men and women, and start like facing the future and thinking about things that matter, like infrastructure and how much money people earn and food costs and things like that.
She was a very arrogant lady, a mayor. She was very arrogant and didn't listen to like there was only one. Just like Jonathan Kay said, there's only one right answer. And, like when you're like that, awesome. We talk about gold and silver lots and Bitcoin, but I noticed that yesterday, and I didn't say it yesterday, but it went up really high. And I said, wow, this looks like a blow off top because it was, I think, up 100, almost 150 bucks yesterday. Like it was at 44 or something. And that's typically what happens. You get this big blow off. And then obviously it's gonna correct massively, right? And it has corrected massively. It's starting to recover that. I think at one point it was down like 250 bucks, but it's down about 233. And silver's off almost like 369 right now, but it was off even more. But yeah, so that's what you get when you get these huge spikes. Nothing goes straight up, and that's why like people think it's going to go through the moon. But it's now technically does it build a base here, which is it should trade sideways for a while and determine its real direction. And technically it looks like it should build a base and then continue higher. But that's technically.
If you're interested in what CBC's take on gold yesterday, I didn't put it in the story load. I should have put it in the story load just for a laugh. But I'm looking at it now. The headline yesterday was The price of gold has surged. That's making it attractive to criminals, experts say.
Oh my God.
I just love it. I just love it. I mean, in a way, we do mock CBC, but I don't know where I'd be without that.
Someone should
Comic
fact check
relief.
that and say, you know, that almost all central banks other than Canada have gold reserves.
Yeah, that would be an interesting story to write about, wouldn't it?
We just in the interest of time, we did that one on Albanese already. I kind of covered it off. It was just kind of like the hilarious thing. We won't do that one. But Governor Gavin Newsom here, you know, he's like one of the gaslighters. Like he is like a complete gaslighter. He's like Trump bulldozing the White House, reopening the government. Not. Do you know what I mean? Like, so. And this is even the Washington Post, demolition crews have begun tearing down part of the White House to build President Trump's long-desired ballroom, despite his pledge that construction of $250 million wouldn't interfere with the existing building. Okay. You know what I mean? Like they're
so obviously wants to be president, doesn't he?
They're tearing down a bit of the facade so they can add on. You do that in your house in the renovation, and again. This is not the only time renovations have been done on this White House, many times, including when in 1812, the War of 1812, when a bunch of Brits and Canadians went down there in a drunken stupor and burnt it down.
Indeed. And to be honest, it's not exactly a particularly special bit of architecture or anything like that, is it? It's pretty banal, neoclassical. Well, you could build 1,000 White Houses in a few months if you wanted to. You could design it for a 3D printer.
But in all fairness to Trump on this, like he goes to England, like, I mean, look at that dining hall there. And, you know, like the room, you know what I mean? Like, you know, he was looking around, he was like, how do I get something like this, right? You know what I mean?
And that's irreplaceable. Like the old sort of English castles and stuff, that's irreplaceable. Oh. Architecture and, you know, stonework and all the rest of it. But people are getting precious about the White House. I just find that absurd.
Well, this is all partisan politics. You know what I mean? It's just all just like, Gavin Newsom is like definitely just a gaslighter extraordinary. You know, there's a couple other posts he put out there too. I mean, trying to inflame the public that, you know, saying this is going to be Trump's house now, Trump's ballroom. Like he's actually paying for this while he's getting a bunch of other people to pay for it. Do you know what I mean? He's getting a bunch of companies to pay for this, not costing the taxpayer any money. Can we do some of that
and
here?
And he's not going to get to benefit from it, is he? Because he'll be gone.
Can we do some of that here?
He won't benefit from it personally, will he? I mean, or not very much. The primary beneficiary is going to be possibly Gavin Newsom if he wins the next election.
Marco Rubio. Yeah, he might be able to come in there and eat some ice cream out of a bowl. And then here's the other breaking news out of the U.S., and this is our last story. Trump just declared war on Mexican drug cartels. You know, he's got that thing going on with Venezuela. Is he going to do the same thing? We're going to play a small clip here from Fox.
Fox News alert, we're at war. This enemy, they don't wear a uniform.
You don't want to show that to the Canadian Coast Guard. Remember when they said they were going to lump in the military? Because that looked awfully military for the Coast Guard there. The Canadian military would say, we're not doing that.
Also, like Techno Vivaldi to promote it there. It's a bit weird. But they did this a while ago. They declared them terrorist entities a while ago, didn't they? And actually, so did the Canadian government. A couple of them, anyway.
Yeah, that's our story load for today. Waste, fraud, and abuse. Again, Francois Philippe Champagne has got to go down. I don't know, if you had to pick between Jolie and Francois in their speeches today, which one is Fool of the Day, or is this one we're going to give them a double award?
I feel like Francois Philippe Champagne, for all of his ridiculousness, I'd choose him if I had to. If they were the last two players left and you had to pick somebody for your team, I'd have to pick him because Jolie is in a league of her own. I'm sorry, Melanie, but you are. You really are sui generis. There's nobody like you on this planet.
I like in the background of Francois Philippe Champagne there, it's like, you know, in concerts where they go in the crowd and they pick out the people that are screaming the most when they want that shot, right? You know what I mean? Like they bring out the shrieking girls in the front to make it look like everybody loves whatever singer's on stage. And that they did the same thing for the background for Francois, just like, oh, good smile, good, oh yeah, diversity, make sure we get everything in the background there. Yeah, okay, good. And he does.
Yeah.
You've got the accent there for his announcement there. We're going to go after fraud. Yeah, start at home. Start looking just in your own department. Start there.
Well, certainly waste. You don't even have to call it fraud if you don't want to, if that makes you uncomfortable, Francois. Just call it waste. There's an awful lot of it in Ottawa.
Go back and play yesterday's story when we talked about the problems with the audit on the CBSA. How many billions was that? How many billions was that?
Too many.
Well, just so we can front run, just like the Gregor Roberts is going to front run the actual news, we're going to front run this climate grift that's coming. Carbon capture is coming to you. You'll be starting to see stories from CBC and CTV shortly talking about how carbon capture is going to be the solution and how Brookfield already has a solution for you. It'll be amazing. The ability to tax our own
And then
producers.
sort of ask yourself, I think, the corollary there. Ask yourself the question, who will this benefit? Who's going to make a lot of money off this? Is it going to be your average Joe? Is it going to be the nurses and the soldiers and everybody that was like that the federal government likes to idolize and say are the greatest people in Canada? Or is it going to be anonymous, often American board members and shareholders?
Or you should ask yourself, if the CBC takes your tax dollars but is not willing to share information of how they use your tax dollars, are they the right people running the CBC? Is it really a function for the Canadian people or a function for the elitists to channel money through and fill the pockets of certain individuals? Because why won't they release that information?
Is it really a public broadcaster? Is it really public? Is it like your local library or something where you can go and read the accounts and find out what they spend on things? Like, is it really that, or is it almost like a semi-private organization that's telling you what to think? Yeah.
You know what we could do with the salary she makes, $562,000 a year. You know what we could do? We could employ like 6-7 journalists here or more, just doing news, like hard-hitting news. And they do with it. They one person plus add all the that's the base. Add the plus to that, and then go to a committee hearing and refuse to answer a basic question. Again, if I had any responsibility there, I would say, get me that number within 10 minutes, or just don't come back into the room. Period. You're done. Go pack your stuff and get out.
But that's the thing is they have these hostile relationships with the people that are asking questions. Like in that case, I think it was a Conservative MP. They have a sort of, they personalize it. It's like, they basically have an argument, don't they? There's no recognition of who that person represents. That Conservative MP
care.
or whatever MP.
They intentionally
that person
do that.
represents Canadian sovereignty, basically. It represents the people who are supposed to hold power in this country. And there's no respect. And I can understand in the media, maybe you might want to insult another MP or something like that. Fair enough. Or criticize them and be silly about them. Okay. But when you're in a committee hearing or when you're in Parliament or something like that, you kind of, that's Canadian democracy on display. It's kind of incumbent upon you to take it seriously.
That's it. That's our show. Beyond the Ballot at 12 o'clock. I feel like I've been on all morning, right? We started at 8:30. Like this is, I'm going to need some more water. But I got Renee Merrifield at noon here, and she's always really good. There's lots going on. She's got a lot. I'm sure she's got lots to talk about.
About Rustad, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean somebody said we got to get an interview with John Rustad. We should ask. I mean, he's done interviews with us many times in the past, so it doesn't hurt to ask, right?
Well, my last, I don't know, I'm going to have a guess here, but my last 5, 6, 7 maybe emails to the BC Conservative media person have just been ignored, including one that I sent yesterday asking for an official statement on Amelia Bowlby. I await a response.
Well, again, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. With the Really Big Show. And again, if you could share it, like it, like shared with tons of friends and that, because they took away our audience. They didn't take away CBC's audience. They just gave them a bucket of cash. They didn't give us a bucket of cash. And so whatever you can do, if you like what we're doing, I mean, I think you're going to learn more here than the CBC any day of the week. So with that said, thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.